Okay, so picking back up where we left off in the previous video, we're going to go ahead and start polishing the curves on this animation. Usually I think in terms of where are the forces coming from. And in this character's case, and most characters' cases, a lot of the force is actually feeling like it stems from the hips. It's more like the motion is stemming from the hips. The force is stemming from the ground where the character is pushing on it. But if you push on the ground with your feet, that immediately pushes your hips. And so all of the upper body and the arms, its motion just sort of originates in the hips. So usually I try to get the hips and the feet working pretty well together early on. And so the best way to do this is just start thinking in terms of weight with the hips. So I grab this is the center of gravity, but I grab the center of gravity controller, and then I literally just go through it one channel at a time and kind of analyze if that channel is doing what I want it to do. So this is the translate X, which is really the side to side. If I go to object view, you'll see it's a little bit more like this side to side. And so if I shift this, you can see kind of what we're going to get out of that. So what we want is to, now the character kind of shifts over that leg a little bit. So you can see we can get a little bit of that change there. And then it kind of settles in over top of this leg. So my thinking is, we can, like this is going to seem extremely tedious at first, but this is really what is necessary to just make sure the motion is working right the way you want it to. Is I'm just going to go through and start polishing this curve, and I'll show you some of that on a couple of these controls, and then I'll go through and show you some of the overlapping and offsetting stuff that I would do. But I have the character kind of shifting over that leg. That feels good. But I want to hold it over that leg just a touch longer. So I'm going to add another key. Add key tool. Middle mouse click, and that's just going to allow me to add that there. And you'll see that what that does is kind of holds it over that leg just a little longer before it shifts to here. So I kind of want him to shift over that leg and kind of go past it a little bit. So maybe something like that. Let's see how that feels. So that's still feeling like it gets there a little early. So I'm going to drag that a frame later. Kind of like that. So now what it feels like is it holds over that leg a little longer before it shifts over. Okay, and then I can kind of clean up these curves just a little bit more there. And so that's just feeling like a nice little weight shift over that leg. So I can always, again, continue to push this a little bit further to get what we want, but we get that. Now, for example, here, where the character really starts to push forward over that leg, that's cool. And then it goes up in the air, and then some stuff kind of gets confused there. So I kind of play with that a little bit. Let's kind of step back one and look. So maybe there's a chance he goes over that leg a little too much. We can just kind of adjust that. Now here's a section where we see these curves kind of flatten out. And I wonder what we can do with that. Maybe a little bit like that. Flattening out's usually a bad thing. Okay, so what I feel like needs to happen is I feel like this still needs to be over this other hip a little bit more. So maybe something like that. And then as he settles onto this leg, so maybe that happens a little too early, a little later. And then what I'm going to do now is, again, keys, add key. Just going to put another one here to kind of hold it over that leg just a little longer. And so I'm just going to play with this a little bit, just continuing to kind of shift some of this stuff, make it do what we wanted it to do. So let's see how that looks. Stuff like that just needs to hold over there further. Okay. Now, I will point out that all of this that I'm doing here is actually in the axis that goes away from the character. So this isn't even really seen that much. But I still want to do it because I want to make sure that this feels accurate. And if it's feeling accurate from all angles, then it probably is accurate and your animation is going to look good. Okay, and so the last thing we can do is kind of shift back over this leg a little bit, and then it kind of eases into that. I'm going to consider just kind of overshooting that a little bit. Keys, another key, and just kind of settling into that. So let's see how that looks. Okay, so it's very subtle, but hopefully it's helpful. So now we'll look at the up and down. And so now this is something that we're going to consider quite a bit, because this is very similar to a bouncing ball, how we would get our character to look like it is appropriately respecting gravity, and gravity is starting to affect it and pull it back down. So we will really focus in on this, these curves, kind of get them looking the way we want them to. So the first thing we're going to watch is we're going to see how our character kind of dips into this pose here. And so if I watch it here in this, yeah, I'm alright with that. I kind of wanted to keep dipping down and then kind of come back up to this a little bit. So again, I'm just going to add another key. Apparently I have to have this selected first, is that right? No, maybe not. Okay, so we kind of get this yeah, that's feeling pretty good. And then this lunge forward here. This is so minute that it may not even be necessary, but I'll probably go ahead and add another little dip key here, just to kind of guide this the way I want it. Not sure if that's working or not. Yeah. Okay. And so now here's where we start questioning how we're going to pop out of this. So right now I have my character kind of pushing up. And so this isn't the same as a ball bouncing off the ground. So it doesn't have to pop straight up. It can. We could always grab this tangent and break it and do something like that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We can look at that and see how that. And so that's actually not. Maybe that is the way to go. Yeah. So it's not feeling bad. So I'll go back to that. Translate my. And so what I do want to do though is I want to kind of increase that arcing at the top there. And then as it comes back down here. And so just by doing this a little bit, we're going to kind of increase the way this impact happens. And so now it's doing like that. And coming back up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this down just a little bit more. We get a little bit of a dip. And then I'm going to have it come back up a little poppier. A little bit of something like that. Just kind of playing now. See if this will work a little bit more the way I wanted it. And so we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so the thing that's kind of striking me is this feels a little soft right here. That hit there, so I'm actually just going to pull that back a little bit like that. That's what that looks like. There we go. I think that's working a little better. I think we could still increase the impact of this by having it happen a little faster, which would actually be, grabbing all of the controls, maybe shifting this back a frame. Let's see how that may be a little too fast. Nope, I actually like that better. Okay, so we'll probably have to go back in there and make sure that I didn't break any of the keys on that, but it doesn't appear that I did. Okay, and so then we kind of have this up and down thing. The character eventually kind of ends up maybe squatted a little bit more. And so that's working pretty well now with the jump and the up and down. And so now we kind of have to address the forward back. Translate Z. And now this is going to be a little bit more of a interesting curve to untangle. So we first have the character kind of go back, and then it kind of hits this wall, right? So let's ease into that a little bit more. And then I'm going to actually add another key, about like that, and then kind of adjust my tangents there. Okay, so I can get this easing in, easing back, and then I think easing a little bit more like that. Okay, let's see if that feels a little bit better. Yeah, it's not bad. Okay, so now let's look at our forward motion even more as we're going forward. And the character kind of launches himself forward, kind of springs there. He kind of starts to slow down on his forward momentum here, and I don't really want to do that. So I guess I could consider sliding the entire feet forward, or maybe try pulling back in some of this. Let's see what this does. And I'm actually adding this to just get a little bit of overshoot in that. Right. Okay, so as he comes forward here, I feel like he's too far forward there still yet. I'm just going to pull him back. And so what this is going to do is it's going to give us a little bit of a place to go in this pose as he overshoots. So maybe it's a little too far. There we go. It's not bad. And so maybe at this point here I would actually, and I know this isn't polished, but I'd go in there and consider rolling him up on his foot just a little bit more, just to kind of clean up his pose a little bit. So very small things. There we go. It's not looking too bad. I don't know, that's feeling a little stretched back. Maybe I'll go ahead and adjust that just a little bit more forward. But then at the same time, maybe what I'll do is just fix it with this curve. Okay, so we got that working. And now what we will do is we'll go to the rotate of here, and we'll do the same thing. Now I know this sounds crazy, like we're just, like all these little details couldn't be making that much of a difference, right? But they are. And so this is the forward and backward rotate, and this is something we can sort of measurably notice because it kind of stops rotating forward here, right? And then, so we can kind of continue to rotate that forward. Then we can quickly see that it continues to rotate forward and then pops backwards. And so we can kind of go through here and adjust that curve now to see if that makes that a little cleaner. Maybe. And you may not even be able to see it, but by knowing that we did it, we know that we're doing the right thing. We're doing what we want the curve to be doing. And after we do that on multiple curves over a long period of time, we're actually going to start noticing the animation just starts to feel clearer or cleaner. So for example here, I'm going to set this little curve here to kind of get a little bit more of that follow through from when he hits the ground. So, okay, little bits of stuff like that. And so we're just feeling little bitty changes here and there as we go. So this is a weird one. This is the rotate Y, which I believe is sort of the twisty one. So we're getting this, those that hit forward. I don't know why it comes back there. I think ideally it's supposed to be like this. So this may not be, yeah. I don't know, I may be able to do it like that. Let's see. Not bad. We may be getting some of that just as part of the issues that we're, like we have a really complicated spine, so we may be getting some additional rotation in the spine, so we're not really noticing the results of that much. We'll see stuff like this, where it just flattens out again. Again, this is sort of the side to side. So basically we're saying from here to here, it doesn't rotate at all, and that doesn't seem right? So I would say it would rotate quite a bit. I'll do maybe something like that. And so if we play this, I don't know what's happening. Put my caps lock on. So that's feeling a little bit better. There we go. So now so we're just going to do that literally with every controller that goes up the spine. I know that sounds exhausting. So now let's look a little bit more though at a couple other little things. Something I noticed here. Let's watch the arm as it rotates forward. This isn't necessarily with the curves, but it will be. We're just going to worry about sort of offsetting parts of the body. So after we go up the spine, maybe what we'll do next is we'll sort of offset some of the arm. So as the arm comes forward, you'll see it kind of hits a wall and then starts going backwards and then goes forward again. So I need to figure out what that's from. It looks like it's from the rotate Y. So if I go look at our rotate Y, you'll see that that's exactly what happens. It's rotating forward, stops, rotates backwards, and then rotates forward again. And so I'm just going to use this curve to kind of clean that up. And you'll actually, I don't know if you'll notice a difference in the viewport now as you play it back here, but I will notice a significant difference because it's something that's been kind of bothering me ever since. Now there's something else that kind of seems like it's happening in there. Do you see that? Let's see if we watch it. So maybe the other arm is doing something, but you'll see that it still feels like it's doing a little bit of freezing in the air there. So there's probably some of the other curves that are doing the same thing. Like we'll see here that this kind of just flattens out. And then in Z, it does the same thing. It kind of changes directions. So there we go. Just kind of, and I'm going to go through here and I will polish each of these anyway. I feel like we're getting a that's because we're getting this doubling up on the arms here in this section. So let's try to see what we can. Yeah. So that's just in the posing. I don't necessarily need those two that close together. So, yeah, you'll see that arm's kind of doing it too. It goes forward and then it kind of comes back and then it goes forward again. And so we'll just adjust this to kind of not feel like it does that. Maybe keep it down a little bit more. But I think that what we're wanting is that somewhere through here, could do maybe something like that. That's how that looks. Alright, so we're getting some weirdness right there. I'll go ahead and do a little bit more with that pose, maybe a little bit of something like that. So, I wonder if this has to do with this other weird controller in here. Yeah, there's like 2 rotation controllers. This thing's weird. Yeah, I think it has something to do with that. So this will maybe a little bit of playing around with the controls a little longer to yeah, but I think that's working a little bit better. So I would still be playing around with that. So right now I'm just trying to make the arm feel like it's dragging a little bit. And so we can actually do that a little bit with maybe shifting some of these keys. So maybe right here, we could have these keys happen a frame later. Maybe have these keys happen 2 frames later. So let's see how that looks. I don't know if you can even really see that playing back. Let's turn off viewport 2.0. Yeah, so that's loosening it up a little bit. There's also a couple other little things. For example, the head sort of hits right here with the same time the hips do. So I could also go in here and sort of drag the head on those poses, maybe by a frame or maybe 2. And so if we watch that now, 2 may be a little much, maybe not. I don't know if it's much, I just think that that pose feels broken now. So probably what I need to do is also drag the neck. Let's see. Yeah, so we get like this overlapping action there that hits afterwards. And I think we could even do that a little bit with this upper chest piece here. Grab all that. I'm just going to drag it 1 frame. Let's see how that looks. That's maybe a bit much to get on the head, so maybe I would go in here and just manually take some of that out. Take a little bit of it out right there. And then in this rotate, just kind of soften that a little bit so it doesn't quite feel like it hits so hard. And then I can also do this to kind of build in my own overshoot and pull back. So let's see how that feels. So of course this isn't the whole polishing the whole thing. This is just polishing parts of it and trying to put it all together. Like I'm just kind of showing you sections of it. So for example, as the arms come back right here, I would really want to drag that and have that happen a little later. And I may actually would just build that into some of the pose. Like maybe right here in this pose, I would really just go in here and just kind of build this drag into it, right? And then actually add that overshoot into my pose as well. Like this. And then I can go in, and if I really wanted to, I'm going to do the opposite here. Something like, and then if I wanted to, I could go in here and offset it a little bit more. So maybe I would offset the hand and the pinkies on some of that section by a frame. So let's see. So you can kind of feel that. It's just feeling a little looser. So this isn't really polished. This is more of splining. I keep calling it polish, but it's really splining. You're making sure all your curves are working well. What your polish is really finite detail stuff, like how these fingers unfold here. Maybe we would actually offset the individual joints. Polish is the little eye darts that your character does when it's looking at stuff. So it kind of feels like it's doing that, like these little eye darts. Polish would be the sort of the teeter of the hat that would happen on it. And just really, really tiny, detailed, oriented stuff. It's very important, but it's also probably the last thing that you do. And so, in this character's case, this isn't really polished, but that's what you should be striving for, is to get to that polish point. So right now, the thing that's bothering me more than anything is sort of this little hitch that I have going on in the hand. And you see that the hand just kind of hovers there across several frames, and I just want to fix that. That's just going to drive me nuts. I don't necessarily know how to fix that, because I think when I was posing it, I posed this control some as well. And I don't even know what that control is doing. So apparently is only animating one channel. And so maybe what I'll do is I'll actually go through and get rid of it, but maybe not. I don't know, maybe I'll just keep working to make this feel like it's doing something different. Maybe something like this. And then as the character is coming down, we'll really just get it up here out of the way. Maybe like he's grabbing for his hat or something. And so if we watch this frame by frame now, is it feeling a little better? It's right there where it messes up, though. I don't like that. I'm just going to delete that. And then maybe I need to change this pose a little bit as well. So if we're getting something like that, okay, it's working better. We're getting a little bit of a hitch on the arm now, but now the arm comes up and sort of locks there. But we can fix that. I can kind of, I believe there's a chance I'm kind of dealing with some gimbal issues in this. So let's try this really quick. If you're ever having issues with this, we can go to where is this at? Euler filter. Yeah, I'm not sure that did anything. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video. Basically, I'm just going to keep sort of fighting with his arm until I get that arc to look the way I want it to. I bet that has something to do with it, doesn't it? I bet it does. So, yeah, that's helping. Okay, so I'll keep polishing on this, and hopefully I'll wrap this up. But that's just the level of sort of splining that I would do, and then I would continue on to polish, which is much, much more detailed little things like eye blinks, finger twitches, eye darts, and sort of the really finesse, like the little bitty head movements that may happen as a character is looking around. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions, and talk to you soon.